Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Soraya, your host for today. With me, I have Joyvin, an amazing actor. You can see him on a series called Doom Patrol, playing a badass. With me as well, Bren. She's an author. She has a book titled Love Letters and Lighter Fluid that you can get on Amazon. And we also have Marina, a Dulcedo model, a volleyball player, and a student in communication. So today's subject is BLM in the industry. And I know that there's a lot of conversation about it, about Black representation in the industry. And we're speaking about it, but are we being heard? Are they listening to us? So it is very hard as a Black, Indigenous, and person of color to get booked in the industry. And once we do, it's often diminished by certain behaviors that we have to live in our work. So I want to start with Joyvin. As an actor, I know you worked really hard to get where you are. How was your experience when you first started, and how is your experience now? Do you see that there's a change in the industry?
I would say that there is a change. I wouldn't say that there is enough change or it's gotten to the point where the problem has been solved, but I would say there has been some change. When I first started out, I was forced to actually, so I went to drama school. Off the back of that, I didn't then want to continue into further education. I wanted to take what I'd learned from drama school and then go into working in the industry. But at the time, I was, receiving roles in which were exactly the same: hoodie number one, thug number two, thug number three, and I was constantly given or told that these were the characters that I had to play. It got to the point where I was like, okay, in order for me to be seen in a certain light, I'm going to have to create my own show, which is when I then ended up creating a show on YouTube called Man on the Wall in 2011, and was, lucky enough to be au fait with social media at the time to allow that to go viral, which resulted in me being able to get my own TV show off the back of my YouTube show. But at the time, I had to create a world in which was, millions of views on that series specifically, just in order to get any network to take us seriously. And we were told, people are not going to relate to your show, or people are not going to watch your show because these Black stories are not common enough. And my viewpoint was always, well, if, something like Finding Nemo is so universal and people can relate to a fish, then how are they not able to relate to a person of color or a Black person? And it just kind of really threw out everything, or all of the preconceived conceptions in which we received at that time. And change then starts to come. And I look back and I look at that show that I created, and the people that were amongst it were, a lot of talent in which were diverse. And that was because we were writing that show, and we are Black, and we are able to tell and create these stories in which then create and give opportunity for more creators or talent or actors to be in front of the camera because of what's here. And I feel like now, no, not really. We're still in the same position. I'm still having to create case studies for every single show that I create, and I'm being told that we've already got a version of that, even though there might be 50,000 procedurals about white people, but we can't make more than one show that has a Black story or something from that world. So not really, but there is some kind of change, but there needs to be way more.
So the only way really was for you to create your own opportunities. It wasn't even about finding a door that would open. It was literally having to build that door and just create everything for yourself. What about you, Bren? You've been writing for 10 years. I'm very curious about the writer's life. Like, what is it? Because people don't really necessarily see you, or I'm just very curious. I want to understand that word a little and what you have to live through.
Ironically, that was actually part of the plan, the fact that they couldn't see me. And I think when you hear the name Brennan Todd, you don't necessarily know what race, what sex, what's going on. Yeah. So in that capacity, it gave me the opportunity to only be judged by my work, which was nice. However, I found myself often in the same position, even in regards to publishing my first book as Joyvon, where I really had to just kind of build my own door and kick it through. in regards to screenwriting, I did what everybody else did, where I was in writers' rooms where the only people with any melanin were me and maybe an Asian writing assistant 1 time out of 10. I worked my way up in one lane while I was simultaneously trying to solidify my own platform. And I kind of worked both sides against the middle until one broke. And it's not necessarily a blueprint that I would even suggest for people. I mean, I think you kind of got to play to your strengths and weaknesses simultaneously. And that's kind of what I ended up having to do. I worked several jobs at several times. I mean, there was times where I had to sacrifice my integrity to get a check with this corporation, and then other times where just kind of the messaging behind the projects that I would pushing would, get their nose turned up at them. It would be too urban, or they want it to be more inclusive, which means they would prefer that I wrote about white people. And it's interesting because a lot of those projects are getting a different perspective from the very same platforms in this climate today.
And how about you, Marina? I know that you just started modeling and you moved from Paris to Montreal, so that's like a big change in your life. How is it for you?
Yeah. Actually, as a Black woman, but as just a model, my first experiences and how everything is just going is very positive in the first sight, of course. I am so grateful to do what I have been doing with my main and mother agency, which is Dolce Model. And I am a new face, so I think that I have just the road and all the life to do whatever the life gives me to do. And I just can't wait for this life to just tell you how is it going to be for me and how it worked, how I felt on set and what are my feelings on all this situation. Because as a Black woman and model, I've been through a lot, but I think that the issue is that it must change, obviously.
It's funny because you and I have had completely different experiences when it comes to modeling, because I think if I look back, not even 4 months, like before the lockdown, I could tell you a situation where I felt like, okay, well, that's a very racist comment that I have to hear from a makeup artist that I know she's not even understanding what she just said to me, that it's very offensive about my look. And maybe she thinks it's a compliment or something like that, but referring to my lips in French and telling me that they're basically like the lip of an animal. and you're just like, I don't know if you mean well, or I don't know what are you trying to tell me? And it's just so hard to take, and you're just trying to be super professional at work, so you're kind of just like, oh, thank you, I guess, I don't know. So just taking everything as a compliment to just go through the day. And even before that, just sorry,
I'm so sorry, but I do believe that we must not take this as a compliment. This is an insult.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. My point is to take it as a compliment for me to be able to go through my day and finish it. And then when I'm done and I'm like, oh, hey, you have no idea what just happened to me today. But if at that moment where I'm doing my job and I have to look at her and be like, really, that's how you see me? I would literally would have to walk away.
Right.
And, many situations like that. So I feel like maybe things have changed in Montreal. I haven't been there in a long time. But for me, it was a completely different experience. It still is, taxi drivers threatening to call the police because you're paying with a certain credit card that they don't want to use because they just don't feel like it. And these kind of situations. For me, I have a lot of history of living that racism, not only at work but also in certain cities that you have to travel. and it's very recent. It's not even, oh, once upon a time, I remember when I started, type of thing. I just want to ask you, Jonathan, what would the industry do? Like, what would be the big move that would impact the industry to make it better for actors, directors, writers, models? What do you think would be that thing?
I think there's many small initiatives or things in which are more practical, but I think if I was to sum it up, I would say equality and representation. I think that when there is representation and when someone is represented, then you don't get into those kerfuffles or you don't find yourself, saying the wrong things, because what that is whatever you want to put it down to, or wherever angle you're coming from, is ignorance at the end of the day. Whether that person is saying it out of and they think it's a compliment or it's not. And so that's called being ignorant, and ignorance comes from lack of education. And so with representation, if we were represented in that way and we had people in which were across the board, then we wouldn't be in that position, because your white counterpart will be educated by your person of color and would understand or have access to understanding how to deal with these things. I think when it comes to, from models to actors to just creatives in our creative field, it comes down to positions of power, having people of color in positions of power, not just, oh yeah, we're going to hire this black actor to lead in this thing, but who's creating this show, who's creating this movie, who's the voice behind that story, and making sure that the producers, that the writers, that people that are integral, the execs, are in positions of power that can dictate and that actually allow certain projects or opportunities to actually surface and come to pass. And until they are in those positions of power and we are represented in that way, then nothing is going to change, because it only changes from the top. And if the top doesn't change, then it's going to be whitewashed through and through.
So, that was actually going to be my next question for you, Bran. As a writer, we see a lot of films with Black characters, but the stories are written by white writers. And I know especially in big films, big productions, their excuses would be, well, we need a writer with a big name, and to go with big names, you have to look at credits. But they were giving the opportunity 10 years, 20 years, forever years. And, you just started. How do you create that opportunity for yourself? How do you make a big name?
I love this question. I personally, 5 years of my career, I was writing under a big name white writer. And to take race completely out of it for 2 seconds, I do understand that any up and coming writer has to do that. The difficulty comes when somebody not of color is trying to tell the Black experience, and it comes forth in the story, it comes forth in the storyline, it comes forth in the characters and the lack of authenticity. I mean, they often are over dramatizing or over sensationalizing or tapping deep into stereotypes and exploiting those, which typically are already living on a foundation of falsehood and white supremacy. So it's a sticky situation. Personally, I had to do the thing where I flipped the table and walked away, and you kind of try to create something for yourself so that there's a little bit of ownership and shop that while you're working at the same time. It's not an easy task. It's definitely something that you have to love, but just to echo again what Joyvon was saying, it is pertinent that these changes don't only exist in a cosmetic way. Everybody's so excited about Black representation in front of the camera, but I do believe that behind the camera, it's just as important. And that also shows kind of when we see these corporations performatively standing with us when it's arbitrary messaging. And you can tell that there isn't a Black person in that boardroom who's actually explaining to them how the Black community would digest this, and ultimately in hopes of it being a productive conversation, it ends up being damaging and making us stagnant. So it's about putting Black representation not just in front of the camera, but also, you know, including people of color the same way that the country is diverse. You know, it should mirror what we see throughout the nation. Unfortunately, what ends up happening globally is that white supremacy reigns high, and beauty standards and media standards all fall under that umbrella.
And it's funny because a lot of time we're able to pinpoint every time that there was absolutely no Black voice in a film that was written, in a magazine, and a fashion show, or in a campaign. We've seen so many of those. And we're able to be like, wait, all you had to do was just have one person and you could have avoided all this mess. And of course, I'm not saying that you should have one, but you should definitely have more. But that's just to show, like, you were able to put that out because you don't have the right voices to represent us.
And I feel like tokenism is just as insulting. You know, when you put a token Black person there to try to throw us off as if we're so incredibly stupid that we can't digest the concept of what you're doing, it's just as insulting.
It is very true. So, Marina, tell us a bit about your experience.
Yeah.
Did you ever felt that you were treated differently from other models?
Of course. As a human being, as a Black woman, as a tall girl, I've always have been treated differently. Like when I was a child, this feeling, I had it forever. I don't know, my voice, my laugh, my height, my curves, my color, my style, anything, but now I'm used to it. And when it comes to makeup, as you told me, it's like kind of the same story, but it was not that insulting. Okay, so there's a lot of compliments on my skin, of how I glow and how beautiful my dark skin is, okay? They make it a huge package. So I take the compliments very politely, and I will always stay very down and grounded to earth. But it's just when makeup artists feel the need to express their happiness on how happy they are to work on the dark skin, it's like, who am I? Am I just a model, or am I like a creature? You know, like an animal, or like a tiger, or anything that you're so excited to work with. I never saw from my eyes, from all the sets, even if I'm a young model, I never seen a white model treated like that. So this is how I see that just with the makeup, I get tons of attention. For me, it's just karma. Like my skin will always make me go on like the path. I don't know why there's so many attention, but for me, it's a plus and it's a great present. But yeah, also for the hair, I have questions that I want to share with you guys. As a Dochino model, how many times did I had to work with a wig or with weave to be bankable? A lot of times. How many times did I had contracts with my natural hair? Zero, okay? And how many times did the hairstylist couldn't manage my afro hair, my natural 4C hair, without burning them? Too many times. And this is why I'm here today, because I want that clients and people that know clients and people that make decisions, it must change. It really must change and be that change, because it's so important. We must be considered as models, not Black models that are just different because of their skin that is so glowing on the sun. This is not normal, seriously. And this
I think
is
you
what
were
said too many times.
Joyvan, I think you were referring to that earlier, as that there was no representation. There was no one, or when you came up with a story and they were like, oh no, sorry, we already have that story. So once again,
it's not the same.
There's no representation of how everyone is, and like the different shades and the different hair texture and skin texture and just everything, right? It's always, like you said, the token, right? This is the representation. And because we don't have the voices behind the scenes to actually write those stories, tell those stories, that's, often you always have the same representation over and over again, and we're not well represented, and that's just how it is. But I want to know, Brent, I want to know, as a writer, I know that you've written a lot of articles about Black Lives Matter. Do you notice that the white writers are using their voice and using it the right way, or do you see that it's more the Black writers and people of colors that are telling the story?
I feel like there's actually a healthy serving of both. There are very informed white allies and advocates that are writing from a point of view where they want to be informative, and they also are amplifying Black voices so that we can tell our own stories and explain our own experiences and reactions and undertaking in regards to this. I do think that, I mean, at the same time, there's a duality always, right? Like you get the negative with the positive. So of course, there's also the performative writers that think that they're writing to help and end up still saying something that's compassionately racist and problematic. I'm assuming that that's, I mean, we've had to live with it thus far. I didn't expect it to be this much of a conversation in my lifetime. So at this point, I just feel like instead of concentrating on what people aren't saying, I kind of have to focus on saying what needs to be said.
That's very good. Do you feel, Joyvin, that you've lived any setbacks in your career because of your skin color?
Yeah. I feel like I would be 15 times ahead the position in which I'm in now if I was a white man. I feel that passionately because of the position that I'm in today, and I've had to fight a lot of adversary, and I've had to fight practically everything and every opportunity and carve my own destiny and my own success from literally nothing. Like when you kind of really think about getting down to the nitty gritty of like, I have to make my own show and look about what platforms I can release this thing on and produce the whole thing, write the whole thing, get it to the point where once it's there, then to put it, like, that's a lot of work just to be seen, right? And so for me, that's just the norm. I was told when I was a kid that from my parents, yo, you're Black, you're gonna have to work 10 times harder than the white man, period. And so I took that on board and I understood that from a very young age. And so that just was in me to facilitate in that way. But at the same time, I can still acknowledge and see all of the different opportunities in which would have gone a different way had I not been Black or had I not been seen in a certain light. And, when you look at stories and creations and, Brentwood experiences from writing, but when you look at the stories in which we have so many like procedurals, we have so many, doctor shows or CIA type shows or these kind of crime thingies in which there is like maybe like 50,000 of them in which are all telling the exact same story with just different actors. And when we're in a position where we have something which is completely unique and fresh that we bring to the table and that has a voice and that has something that people want to hear, it just doesn't get regarded. And it's almost, put into a completely separate box just because, okay, this is a Black thing. It doesn't get seen like that. I remember when I started writing, I started really trying to challenge myself. And this is how I started to get an aspect of it, which is creating certain characters that I would write. And I would find, okay, there is no difference between this character being a male and being a female. This character can actually be a woman and does not need to be a man based on the character and everything in which the character is offering to this story or to this piece. And so I found that I would then create an exercise for myself where I would try and swap out characters in which for my own, and I take full responsibility. As a man, you think in a certain way. And so, you also write based on your own experience, right? And I am a man, and that's the experience that I have. I didn't have any sisters, and so I just had my mum. So my brain thinks in a certain way. And so I gave myself a constructive exercise to say, okay, swap all of these characters around. If you swapped, Marcus and you made Marcus a woman, what difference would that make? And I started seeing, there really is no difference. And so I put to my white writing counterparts to say, what difference does it make for this character in which is a white male to be a Black man? this is the same race. You don't even have to change that. But there is no color in that. When you go to on the phone and you ring up your doctor and you book an appointment, him being black or white makes no difference as long as he is educated and he's able to deliver on what it is that you're asking him to do. And so there are so many characters out there that we have in which could be characters of color and could have so much more melanin in these stories, in which we just don't do that because I just put it down to not doing the work, and you can't be bothered to do enough work and to put yourself in a position that warrants you feeling like you have an opportunity to do that, and there is no excuse for it. So yeah, I don't even know what I was answering there. I was just kind of going on a rant, but yeah.
I love it.
My frustration
The passion, that's what I love about you, though. You're always very passionate. But you're very right, and a lot of time when you'll approach them, like a production company or anything with a story, they'll say, well, there's no audience for it. But how do you know there's no audience for it? And you really proved it with your YouTube and the show that you've created. You really proved it to the point where people started approaching you to have you create content for them. And like you said, we have to create opportunities for ourselves, and it's always having to work 10 times harder
and not feel like
on the same level.
Sorry, but like this is one, like feeling like a trend, like we are just a trend as black people. Like even with this, I'm writing a movie at the moment in which I'm talking to various companies and studios, and was kind of left to my own devices for about 8 months to finish the script. And during that time, not once did any of these companies check in. Literally, the moment that everything started soaring with BLM and the movement and the protest, within 1 week, I heard back from like 4 of the companies in which we wanted to work with. Hey, like, have you got that thing? And I could just put it down to a conversation in which took place was, guys, look what's happening. What black people are we working with? Okay, send them an email. Make sure that they're on the slate so we can. That's a trend. Like, why? You know, yeah. I'm sorry. I just.
That is actually very true. I have to say that I'm definitely getting more offers also work-wise, and after my documentary, I've been approached, and you know, it's been out for quite some time now, and now you're seeing who's coming out. But I'm definitely taking it with a grain of salt and precaution, because for them it is just a trend, right? And for me, I see, okay, opportunity. I have to take this opportunity because I'll be able to be a voice for so many others that are going to come after me. But I also have to be careful, because I know that at any time that the trend would fade in their eyes, that they could just be like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no, we just don't really need this, you know, and just set you back to the side. So not really rely on depend on the offers so much, and continue creating opportunities for yourself.
I do believe, guys, that as long as we're giving ourselves at 100% lately with everything that is happening in the world, the trend will not fade away if we give ourselves, and if we speak loud as we can, and if we take the space that we deserve, it will never fade away. Because if we take this like spot, if we do it like in a community mod, I'm sure that something's gonna happen and everything's gonna change. It's gonna take time, step by step, but it's gonna change. But I do
agree. I agree with you, but it is not a trend. This is our lives. This is things that we have to deal with. This is like, you know, certain things that happen to you, and you're just asking yourself, why? What did I do?
I'm sure. So now we have opportunities. Let's take them without hesitating, and let's like do it and be loud, so we can inspire tons of people to be loud and to do what they want and not be stopped even before they try because of their color, because people have been saying or telling them you cannot do it because you're black, or just showing them by having only white people in their like industry or society. If we take this spot, guys, I'm sure that things are going to change. I'm sure.
but I feel like we have to do that. Like I've personally got to the point where I'm just kind of like, I don't actually care anymore what the reason behind us being given opportunities is, and now just being put in a position where whatever the reason, whether it's that you want to tick a box or you want to in front of your bosses, I'll take it, and I'll take that opportunity, whether the intent behind the opportunity that you're giving me is genuine or not, because I know that I can then use that opportunity to actually start to make a difference and present a world where now you do actually care, or the things in which you're doing, the intent behind what you're doing is for the right reason, you know, because I feel like if we just spend too much time worrying about it, what this is, and like, we're just not getting anywhere, and we have not been given anything before. So whatever your reasoning, just give us an opportunity and we'll just take it and run with it, because that's kind of
sure. Also, it's not about like taking the opportunities that has been given to us, but also creating them. Like this life is a huge opportunity to just express ourselves, so people can just be open-minded even more, because BLM is just worldwide, and I think that tons of stuff are going to move in our advantage, of course, but also in the industry and the white people that are not making the change.
I think it's always going to be, it's always and absolutely going to be a leverage game, which it has been from the beginning. So it's about us kind of creating our own avenues. But I agree with both of you wholeheartedly, because I do think that there's a necessary element in not examining somebody else's intention and just understanding your own. So if I have a major network opening this avenue for me to produce a doc with message, and kind of that propelled the messaging forward and gives, provides progress for my people in my community, and they say they want to be a part of it, whether they mean it or not, okay, and I'm going to hold you to that, and we're going to produce this project and put this out. Yeah. And I'm gonna own it. But I appreciate the streaming options, and we can move forward. I think it's kind of about focusing on your intentions and not necessarily wasting your energy dissecting theirs, because history has already proven that it's faulty. If you look for something, you're gonna find it. It's like going in a dude's phone. Like, it's there. Don't do it.
That's a very interesting analogy.
I think it's just easier, to focus on the end game. This is a war. This is not a battle.
Yeah,
I agree. And it's about finding solutions and finding ways to make that difference and to, really stir up. Like I'm constantly just trying to find new ways that I can use my knowledge or experience or clout to be able to make real change and actually do something which is going to drive that difference. And so, yeah, like that's all we can do. We can just keep striving, keep pushing to keep creating more opportunities. And yes, creating opportunities, but at the same time, we still need that leverage, because at the same time, you can create these opportunities, but once you've created, I still needed the white man to say, okay, you've now done this YouTube show. It's now done millions of views on YouTube. So, okay, yes, now I have the power to make it a TV show. And so I'm going to do that. And that was only based on the production company we were working with. They like that kind of content. They are diverse. They create stories in which are, but had it not been, I would have still needed someone to let me in. I would have still needed that opportunity. So as much as I can create my own opportunities, there still wasn't a black exec or a production company which is owned by someone in which is able to tell those stories or is passionate about telling that story. So,
That's very true. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys, for being here and sharing, your opinions and your work. And, on a last note, anybody want to say something? I kind of want you to not only tell us what you're working on right now, your projects, but, just anything that you have in mind.
I will say that I had tons of stuff to say today, and I'm so sad that it's just so short, but I'm going to be quick. And as a woman, I know that there's tons of girls, like I receive a lot of messages of girls that are wondering how they will be how will they be able to become one day a model? Knowing that they're curvy, knowing that they're just Black. And from there, it's like something that I would like to hurt at the moment that I start my career. Like, just know that all you have is a heritage, and we must be aware from that it's going to be harder than any other ethnicity because we have tons of stuff to prove. And just knock on the biggest doors that you know, and that you know where you can try. Just try and listen to your dreams and your inner soul, that it will be like, why don't you try? Why don't you be that girl you want to be? And once you make that try, maybe there's some doors that will be open. Because my first agency just told me that I was too big to be a model, okay? And I was the same size I am today. And I'm here in Montreal today in an agency. So do not never listen to no one that would say you cannot do something because of this or because of that. That's my message, guys.
Never give up.
Never, ever.
How about you, Bren?
I guess my messaging, well, often and always, I just definitely want to shed light on the fact that there are so many Black Lives Matter cases that have yet to see justice and probably won't see justice. And I would really like to just kind of pay attention to some of the women that have been murdered by killer cops, basically, that have yet to see justice, because their cases really do get swept under the rug more oftentimes than not. Go to change.org, sign petitions, spread the word, do your part. Life is not a spectator sport. We have to get involved. And other than that, just like in regards to writing, just do it. Listen to your own intuition, do it, get started. Don't let the negative thoughts or the doubts get the last word. Just tell your story.
Love it. How about you, Draven?
For me, working on just a bunch of things, trying to keep active in this quarantine. Trying to spread my word via spoken word and via other means and creating projects. But yeah, trying to find, well, I found a real solution, especially to when it comes to diverse storytellers and us having these opportunities and being able to tell these stories. And essentially now just waiting for the universe to provide me with the partners to be able to make it come to fruition. But I do believe that I have, the answer, especially for diverse filmmakers and storytellers. And I think I would say to creators in which are just creating and trying to build and find opportunity. You know, I'm someone who was born and raised in London and, didn't come from any money and came from a background and family of people in which I was fortunate to have family in which believed in me and believed in what I wanted to do. And I know that a lot of people don't have that. And so that was how I was able to build a lot of my self-belief and validation in myself. And if you don't have that, then I just want to encourage you that he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. And success is a mindset, it's a mind frame, and getting to wherever it is that you want to be is based on how you view yourself and the action in which you put in. Talent means nothing without hard work, and execution is the most important word of every word in the dictionary for me, because if you don't execute on anything, then nothing is tangible and you can't move things forward. So whatever your surroundings are, whatever field you're in, whether it be you want to be a model, you're a writer, you want to be an actor, filmmaker, storyteller, just start working with whatever it is that you have access to at that time, because it might just be a camera phone and you really want to be shooting on an Arri Alexa or even a Sony A7 III or whatever. But if you just have that camera phone, use that. I started using whatever I had access to at the start, and now I'm making stuff in Hollywood and I'm acting and I'm producing, etc. So yeah, just start, man, and find your squad and like-minded individuals and just do it. Like Nike said, just do it.
I love it. For me, it's sorry.
Take your time.
Oh.
Stop.
For me, it's a message to all immigrants. I'm an immigrant myself, And everyone needs to understand that without African Americans, we would not be the free immigrants that we are today. So Black Lives Matter for us as well, because they gave us that freedom to be able to be immigrants. So please do the right thing. If you see something, do the right thing. Go and sign the petitions. And this is so important because we are here because of their history. And without them, we wouldn't have these opportunities that we have. And we're all Africans. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you.
I want to clap.
Yeah, we have to honor our ancestors.
Always.
Our fight of today will be the answer of their fight of yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So when we say believe in your dream, it means work your ass off and do whatever it takes to go to the light, because we deserve that. We're worker and we're honest and we're gonna make this, I believe.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.